I like to think of it as the flagship program of Scripps College. It is related to the Humanities Core, which is our curricular flagship. And really the point of this, at least the point of the Institute, is to bring together important thinkers, hopefully current thinkers, about relevant issues of our time. Because the Academy is often very good at thinking about issues of previous times, past times. We're trying to address some of the pressing issues of this time. So I'm going to go to the person who will introduce Mr. Ayloush. She is a Humanities Institute Fellow. We have 12 of them who were specially selected for their academic excellence, but also their interest in this particular topic, which, as you may know, is the world at our doorsteps, immigration and deportation in Los Angeles. And we're specifically focusing on LA because if you want to hear about the world, you can just look at CNN. But here, there are issues that we're not always aware of.
If you want to learn about the
frankly,
world, watch CNN. That's what he said.
And sometimes we choose to make it so.
Comment below what
But
you think
not
of that.
today. So Miyati Naran is a sophomore at Scripps. She's majoring in politics, philosophy, and economics. Very ambitious. Her interest in the Humanities Institute stems from learning. She wishes to learn from people most involved in the issues at hand about how we can make substantial change. And who better than to inform us than Hussam Ayloush. But first, we'll listen to Miyati. Miyati, will you come?
Good afternoon. Hussam Ayloush has been a long-time human rights and democracy activist for causes here and abroad. He took his current position as Executive Director of the Greater Los Angeles Area Office of the Council on American Islamic Relations in 1998. Through his work at CAIR, Hussam engages elected officials, law enforcement, media, and the public to enhance understanding of Islam, encourage dialogue, empower American Muslims, and build coalitions that promote justice. As an expert on American Muslim issues, Hussam regularly appears on local, national, and international media, and frequently speaks at schools, Islamic centers, churches, conferences, and universities. Hussam is a member of the West Coast Muslim Catholic Dialogue and the Abrahamic Faith Peacemaking Initiative. He has been an elected delegate and executive board member for the California Democratic Party for over 6 years. He serves on the advisory board of the Orange County chapter of Asian Americans Advancing Justice. He is the past national chairman of the Syrian American Council, an organization that advocates for democracy and human rights in Syria. In 2016, Hussam was chosen by the Orange County Register as one of the 100 most influential individuals in Orange County. Hussam holds a BS degree in aerospace engineering from the University of Texas, Austin, and an MBA degree from California State University, Fullerton. Please welcome our speaker.
Okay, this gentleman is the head of CAIR.
Thank you, Nian, for the generous introduction. It's always strange listening to yourself being introduced. Who's that guy? I want to hear it. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. It's a great pleasure and honor to be on campus. Always a pleasure for me being around people seeking knowledge and giving that knowledge, sharing that knowledge. Thank you, Professor, for having me here. So I thought about, there's a format, so we'll have like maybe 20, 25 minutes for me to speak a little bit more about CAIR and the work of CAIR. I'll explain what CAIR is. And then maybe a few questions and answers with you. Maybe some of them are prepared and others will be coming from you. So we'll try to manage the time. So I'm checking the time here to control myself, because like professors, although I'm not a professor, I can go on for like 5-hour speeches. You can ask my kids and they will prove that to you. So, what is CAIR maybe? And CAIR stands for the Council on American Islamic Relations. It's the organization I work for in LA. It's the largest American Muslim advocacy and civil rights organization. It was set up in 1994. It's almost like the NAACP of the American Muslim community. The goal is to promote better understanding of Islam and Muslims, protect the civil rights of American Muslims, and making sure that democracy works, basically. The bottom line is to make sure that American Muslims engage in their rights and responsibilities and work with others, building partnerships that promote justice, mutual understanding in our country. But before we talk about some of the work of CAIR or the work that I do, maybe I'll have a quick introduction on a personal level about myself. I was born in Lebanon, country somewhere in the Middle East. How many of you know where Lebanon is?
Do you speak French? I'm just curious.
Oh, c'est très bien. Parce que c'était une partie de la francophonie.
We'll switch to English.
Back to English, okay.
For the-
We don't want to discriminate against those who don't speak
Exactly.
French, okay.
My parents were born in Syria, Damascus, Syria, countries that have been in the news lately. We have mixed Arab and Turkish backgrounds. So to make things worse for my kids, I married to a Mexican American from Texas. So my kids are very confused about their identity, you can imagine. Actually, they're not. They're very proud of every part of it. I came to the US almost 30 years ago as a student, seeking my undergrad degree in aerospace engineering. Finished, came here, got my master's, and then as a volunteer for the work of CAIR, I got attracted to this type of work, decided to quit my aerospace work and eventually do this work. It is important to explain who are American Muslims, and maybe before we talk about American Muslims, I'll briefly, I know this is an audience that is a little bit more educated, obviously, than the average person. I'm definitely sure about that. But I'll still go over very briefly. How many of you feel that they are knowledgeable enough about Islam and Muslims? So only a handful. So I'll take a few minutes maybe just to explain, because we can't understand discrimination and racism and bigotry unless we humanize that group that is being discriminated against. Because actually, the best way to ending discrimination is for us to humanize each other and know about each other. Islam is one of the world's largest monotheistic religions, with about 1.6 billion followers in the world. That's with a B. It's probably in every country in the world. There are 57 countries in the world that actually are or announced being Muslim majority countries. But Islam, like Christianity, exists and flourishes in every country in the world, including in America, where we have 6 to 8 million, in Canada, in Europe, in South America, throughout Africa. It's where it's the largest religion in the Middle East, in East Asia, Southeast Asia, everywhere. We're just talking with Professor Wang. There are about 50 million Muslims in China, of various ethnicities and backgrounds. In Russia, about 20% of the population is Muslim. There are Muslim majority countries in Europe itself, Albania, Bosnia, and so on and so forth. So Islam itself is a religion, not to be confused with the ethnicity or ethnic groups such as the Arabs. A lot of times people confuse both. To create an analogy, think of, since my wife is Tex-Mex, think of Mexican and Catholic, right? Mm-hmm. Mexican is the ethnicity or nationality, like an Arab would be an ethnicity or national origin in that sense. Islam is the religion. Most Arabs happen to be Muslim, maybe 80+% of them. But actually there are Arabs who are Christians, there are Arabs who are Jews, there are Arabs who are atheists, and others. Most Muslims are not Arab. Actually, Arabs are a minority within Islam. Anyone can think which is the largest Muslim country?
Indonesia.
We all hear that, right? Actually, someone was challenging me on that 2 days ago. He's from Pakistan, so he's biased. He said Pakistan is the largest Muslim country now, with almost 200 million people. Whichever, we're not going to get into that. But when we think of a Muslim, usually we think of images we see and watch in media. Mm-hmm. The terrorist, the extremist, or whatever it is. But the average Muslim doesn't look like the average Muslim on our mind. There is no such thing as an average Muslim. You know, can you think of what does an average Christian look like? Korean, you know, Nigerian, European, all of the above. And same thing with Muslims. It's a very diverse. It is actually one of the most diverse religions. It is one of the fastest growing religions in the world. It's certainly the fastest growing religion in America, in Canada, in West Europe, through immigration, through reproduction, natural way, but also through conversions. Today, when you look at American Muslims, you see, as various studies have shown, the most diverse religion in America is actually Islam. Whereas
No, it
you
isn't.
see white Europeans, you see African Americans, you see Latinos, like my wife and my kids, and you see Asian Americans, and so on and so forth. It's a very, you can step into any mosque, and you'll be surprised by the diversity within that community. Now, the breakdown of the American Muslim community is also very interesting. When we think of a Muslim in America, we're thinking a lot of times about the stereotypical image of a Middle Eastern Muslim. But again, Middle Eastern Muslims are a minority within American Muslims. Only about 20, maybe 23% of Muslims in America happen to be Middle Eastern, meaning mostly Arab, but also of Iranian and other Middle Eastern origin. About 35% of them are of South Asian background. South Asians, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and so on, even Burma. Almost 25% of Muslims in America happen to be of African American origin. Anyone can think of some famous names?
Malcolm X,
Malcolm X, of course. So, you know, a true American
who hated the
civil
Democratic Party.
hero. Muhammad Ali, the champ, the hero, the most
The
famous,
draft dodger.
you can imagine, name in our recent history, especially when it comes to celebrities and sports and so on.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Barack Obama, oops. That was a secret, I wasn't supposed to tell you that. He's not Muslim, by the way. Don't tell the Trump supporters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying that. I know you wanted to wait for a question. I was just curious.
I do a lot of jokes, so you don't have to.
That's
I'll
fine.
make sure
I like you have a sense of humor. I just wanted to know. I was just curious.
I'll have
Okay.
Q&A at the end.
Okay. Okay.
Perfect. So these are some of the names and famous names you can imagine, and it's actually,
Sorry.
when you think of diversity in terms of immigration also, so obviously Islam has existed in our country before the inception of our country. Through the forced slavery, almost studies have shown that about a third of slaves brought into the country were actually of Muslim origin. We're talking about West Africa. That's just based
not
on
true.
statistics and studies. That's almost 1/3 of the slaves brought here, but forced to give up their religion eventually by the slave owners and the masters. Now, most of the Muslims, as I said, are not African Americans, so they're not of indigenous background. However, almost of the, as I said, 1/3, almost a little bit less, is African American, and others are mixed European, Anglo-European, Latinos, and others. The rest are either immigrants or children of immigrants. So, in a way, you know, we're recognizing, actually, we're dealing with the Christopher Columbus holiday and all the dilemma behind it now. It's a good time to think about it. Who is an immigrant? Who is not an immigrant? Who is actually a Native American? Right? You know, when people, you know, every once in a while I get a question, you know, especially when I speak on a less educated setting than this one. You know, somebody will get upset and say, well, Muslims are not true Americans. Muslims are not real Americans until they integrate and become American. And I said, what do you mean by integrate? So, well, you have to assimilate. You have to look American. You know, why do you have this facial hair? You know, why does your wife wear the headscarf? That is not real American, you know, which is funny because my wife is actually originally Native American. And when it's really funny when some white Jew on the street tells her, go back home. Because, I'm home.
White Jew? White Jew?
The point is, when
Question mark?
people talk about assimilation,
White Jew?
what are they really talking about? They're talking about giving up your identity and following, you know, the main, large, dominant culture, which is usually Anglo-European culture. So when someone says, you know, why don't you an easier, why did you name your kids Umar or Ali or Aisha or Sophia or Mari, which are the names of my kids? I have 5. Why did you choose those names? I said, not what? What do they have in mind is Anglo names. And you usually say, well, I named my kids American names, like Ali, Muhammad Ali, right? So these are important questions to ask, because we will not be able to address the structural racism that exists in our country without acknowledging that we do have misperceptions on our mind. We're driven by some biases. We wear glasses that define who is a true American and who is not a true American, who is a new American. We like to define that, when in reality, unless you're really a Native American, you are either an immigrant or a child or a descendant of immigrants. Some came here, with mercy, getting visas and doing what they need to do. Others came with weapons and forced themselves into the land, taking it over from the rightful owners. So regardless, it's important to understand that there is one common thing that brings us all together, and that's the fact that we share the land, we share the future, the destiny of our future, the destiny of our children is intertwined, it's interconnected at the end of the day. So whether you're white, black, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, brown, atheist, short, tall,
I thought Muslim wasn't a
slim,
race.
fat, boy, girl, whatever it is, our future, whether we like it or not, is interconnected. What will happen, what kind of education our children receive, will depend on what you and I do today. And that is important to remember, that anytime anyone thinks through the vision or the prism of ethnicity or superiority, they're undermining themselves, undermining their future, undermining their country, undermining humanity, in my humble opinion. So I wanted to give that quick introduction. Maybe with that said, this is the philosophy of what I stand for, this is the philosophy of what CAIR stands for. That all of us are human beings. All of us belong to one race, that is the human race. And I'm not saying people shouldn't be proud of their identity. I'm proud of the multiple identities that I belong to. But it should be a sense of pride to share, to learn, to interact, not to oppress, suppress, marginalize others, because no one has a God-given right to think they're better than others only because of some race or ethnicity that they belong to. So that is the philosophy of CAIR. And the philosophy of CAIR is, we have a great constitution. We believe that we have one of the best constitutions in the history of constitutions made in our world. I know I don't want to sound too nationalistic, but it's truly a good constitution, especially for those of you who have traveled around the world. You know what I'm talking about. You see what happens when there are no laws, there are no rights protected for people.
Like in Islamic countries.
So it's worth defending, but it's also worth engaging. The Constitution is not going to self-activate. It is not going to protect people because it's sitting there in some library. We need to engage, we need to defend, we need to protect, we need to use that Constitution. So CAIR's mission is to basically promote that understanding of Islam, to make sure that we don't allow for bigotry to prevail, but also make sure that we are an active community. We're active citizens that understand their rights as well as their responsibilities. That we are part of making a positive change in America. So we have programs involving civil rights work. We do a lot of civil rights work. Much of the work that we do involves dealing with abuses coming from government, with the unfair policies and targeting different people, with the misunderstanding of Islam that exists out there in the media, in the public, due to an Islamophobia industry, which I'll probably talk about later on, and what it entails, what it results in. Targeting of young Muslims in high schools, in colleges, in elementary schools, bullying. American Muslim kids are the highest recipients of bullying in our country.
Jewish kids are.
They're the first. They receive more bullying than any other community. Second community is the LGBT community, and then the Sikh community and others. Imagine, we did a study, and 54% of Muslim students in public schools in California, one of the most diverse states, have admitted to being subjected to verbal or physical bullying, anywhere from being called terrorists to having their hijab, their headscarf being pulled, being harassed or physically attacked, in unfortunately in many cases. We're dealing with discrimination at the workplace. I can't tell you how many times we receive. I mean, that's part of what we do. We have lawyers, full-time lawyers and attorneys at the office who deal with results of Islamophobia and bigotry, where people are denied jobs or let go from a job because their names, or because they wear hijab, or they choose to pray during the break, or because their looks does not fit the company's looks in terms of because of their religious identity and so on, and the hatred that exists. How many mosques get attacked? Just in the last couple of months since election, almost 35 to 40 mosques have been attacked, vandalized around the country, including some here, threatened, received death threats. How many times hate incidents result in targeting Muslims at even on the streets, in supermarkets. Government policies, as I mentioned, we have something we call flying while Muslim. You know, there's driving while black. There's something called flying while Muslim. Too bad you're not part of that VIP club where we get free massages at the airport. When you get there early, and we got free massage by various officers there. And unfortunately, you know, I know so many people who actually, on a regular basis, I deal with it almost on a weekly basis, who are forced to either show up at the airport 3 to 4 hours in advance before their flight to make sure they make it, and many times they don't make it. We deal with a lot of those cases where they end up saying you cannot board the airplane, and these are professors, engineers, some of them born and raised in this country with no records, absolutely, etc. You know, you end up being on some list. God knows how these lists are prepared. We have to deal with these things. We have to deal with the issue of some trying to turn American Muslims into second-class citizens in their own country, something we completely reject. I will elaborate a little bit more. I mean, some of the work we do involves empowering the youth. We have youth programs that are specifically focused on training youth to be civically engaged, proud of their identity, something called the Muslim Youth Leadership Program. I did bring some literature with me that elaborates a little bit more on what I'm talking about, so I save you the time of having to listen to the details of these programs. But the various programs that we have aim to do a couple of things. So instead of listing each of the programs, we have 7, 8 different programs focusing on youth, high schoolers, college students, adults, young professionals, and just regular citizens at large. But the main focus, or the main goal or goals of these programs is, one, to build in an identity that is proud to be an American Muslim. You don't have to choose. No community in America has to choose. And I will talk about how others were made to choose in the past. But no one should ever have to choose whether I'm Catholic or American or Mexican American or Latino or Chinese or Buddhist or Jewish, or you can be all of the above. You can be Jewish, Chinese, American. What would stop you? What should stop you from having multiple identities and being proud of who you are? And our goal is to make sure American Muslims feel engaged, feel confident, they don't feel marginalized, they don't feel the anxiety that many are feeling nowadays. So through these programs, we train them on their identity, on American history, set up some programs where they go to Sacramento, they go to DC, where we build coalitions with Asian American groups, specifically the Japanese American community, which has been one of our most supportive and sympathetic partners. You know, you can guess why, because back in World War II, after Pearl Harbor, the Japanese American community knows what it means when your country betrays you, when your country treats you as a suspect and as an enemy. Similar to what Muslims have to endure after 9/11, where our country and many of our countrymen treated us as enemy, while we had absolutely, like the Japanese American community, had absolutely nothing to do with those horrific attacks, Pearl Harbor or the 9/11 attacks, respectively. But because of that, I think there has been a bond that has been established since actually pre-9/11, and it got developed, where now we have programs where we visit Manzanar. How many of you have ever had the chance to visit Manzanar? It should be a must, truly. It should be a must, not because we like to bash our country, but unless we learn from the mistakes of our country,
No, not the country.
we are doomed to repeat them.
The Democratic Party.
To go there and know what could go wrong. We have the best constitution, the great freedoms. We have one of the most diverse people in the world. Yet we could be blinded by anger, by hate, by war, and failed leadership, and then target another community. So it's important to go if you can make. There's an annual trip that happens every year called the Pilgrimage to Manzanar. It's around April. It is only a few hours from here. It's near Bishop, on the way to Bishop, but it's definitely worthwhile getting together, spending a day, coming back with over 1,000. So we've made a trip actually for Muslim Americans to go there on a yearly basis. We take over 100, sometimes 200 to join in, students, imams, religious leaders, activists, to learn and interact with others and build alliances. So these are some of the works, in addition to the civil rights. A lot of work we do deal with media. We work with the Hollywood, the entertainment industry, because one of the worst areas contributing to the misrepresentation and misunderstanding of Islam has been Hollywood.
Yes.
You know, can you think of any positive? The only positive thing you can think of in recent times in Hollywood of image of a Muslim or American, can you think of one?
Suicide.
Aladdin had to be a cartoon.
Suicide bombing.
Yeah, I mean that's what you see usually, right?
Yeah.
I would agree. Hollywood is doing a very bad job.
It
They're
is.
doing
And
it very corrupt.
And it's part of what we do is actually engaging with Hollywood, because also keeping in mind, not everybody who works there is deliberate about that, but they need a villain. You can't do a villain now from other communities, thank God. Now the only community that is it's somehow accepted to be villainized or demonized is the Muslim community at large. And then you see all these images of terrorism. You know, usually a Muslim, when we watch them in Hollywood, they're either a terrorist, a womanizer, you know, like some sheik, or a victim. Like, you know, there's never a positive role model. I said the only positive role model that my kids can think of is Aladdin, and he's not even real, by the way.
And we don't even know if he's a Muslim. He's an Arab.
He's an Arab, exactly.
Yeah, but-
So keeping that in mind, we'll have questions if you don't mind, just for the interest, not to,
Just making me think of a lot of questions.
yeah, write them down, because I'm gonna try to give.
Here's a pen, sir.
Yeah. So,
There.
and now I guess you're gonna, otherwise I'll have to open it up for everybody. So what I wanted to
Why don't we do that?
conclude with on this issue, when we talk about racism, I don't want people to leave with the impression that American Muslims are victims. I can tell you, we don't feel like victims. Maybe some
But he just outlined a whole bunch of victims.
would and ready, and we have been fighting back. We're pushing back against those who wish to make us second-class citizens in our country, because we hold dearly what we have. I've lived in other countries. Yes, I was a teenager, but I still visit. I just came back actually 10 days ago from Poland. And I don't know how many of you have had a chance to visit Poland, Warsaw.
No.
It's one of the most depressing places because of the history.
Yeah.
When you go there, people have not recovered what happened yet. So many years, decades after World War II, Warsaw was completely demolished, destroyed by the Nazis. The Jewish community was completely eliminated in Warsaw. Half the residents of Warsaw was destroyed.
Yeah.
This is what bigotry does when we don't challenge it. So for us, we take it seriously. We're nowhere close to that. We're nowhere near, thank God, to that in our country. But we're not going to allow, and we cannot do it alone. So we are committed to defending and upholding our Constitution, making sure we reach out to others. We will not accept to be treated as victims or second-class citizens. I will not apologize for being a Muslim, and I will ask my community never to apologize, never to have to explain itself. I don't need to humanize myself for you to accept me. And I know I'm not talking to you, but I'm talking to the public. Actually, anytime we expect a targeted community to try to convince me about their humanity, that's when I'm wrong. That's when I'm wrong. No one has to go out of their way to explain who they are. It's my job to learn about others. And if I have negative feelings or unfavorable views about a community, it's not their fault, it's my fault. I need to check my own values, my own knowledge, my own principles, my own humanity. If I'm doubting anybody else's humanity. So I wanted to put things in perspective, and I'll end there. What American Muslims are facing today in America is nothing new in America. What we are facing today is just another chapter in a long series of racism that has existed in our country. And if anyone does not agree to that, they need to go back and read our history. I'm not saying every American, every one of our forefathers is a racist. I think we were smart enough to know that. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is our country was built on a sense of supremacy, superiority. Whether it's the early Europeans who came in thinking they are superior to the Native Americans.
No.
And if you read the memories of Christopher Columbus, the diaries, you can see what I'm talking about, how he perceived the Native Americans. But it wasn't only Christopher Columbus who followed. How we built the country, how we marginalized, how we excluded others. And it's not just the Native Americans and the genocide that targeted them. What happened to blacks, African Americans, African slaves, what happened to Chinese people in America, the Chinese Exclusion Act in America, where if you're Chinese, you can't own, you can't. What happened to the Japanese American community? What happened to the Catholic community? What happened to the Mormon community? Remember, it wasn't too long ago in our country where blacks could not drink from the same water fountains, could not sit in the same bus, same seats, same schools. It wasn't too long ago. It wasn't too long ago when a president who was Catholic was questioned about his patriotism. JFK Kennedy was questioned whether his loyalty is to America or to the Vatican because he's Catholic. This is the same question that was given to the first member of Congress who happened to be Muslim, who was elected, Keith Ellison, when he was asked, when they were saying, can we trust? Actually, until recently, during the presidential election, we had Dr. Ben Carson, saying, we have to subject Muslim candidates to a litmus test of patriotism before they run for office. So we're talking about a long history that targeted, anti-Semitism in our country, the anti-immigrant sentiment, anti-Latinos, there's a long list. It's almost like there's an initiation process before you can get accepted into the fold. Not acceptable, not something we should take lightly, but I'm putting that in perspective because I don't want you to think this is something we're dealing with today is just called Islamophobia. The irrational fear of Muslims. Islamophobia is just a new chapter in the long history of xenophobia
That's a lie.
and bigotry and ignorance that has always existed. And if anything, what we've seen in various places, Charlottesville recently, what we hear on the radio, is a reminder that that ugly racism is live and well in our country. It just needed a trigger to show its ugly face, and unfortunately, it feels confident today that it can do it, whether in marches, in comments, in speeches, and all over. I think it is still a minority within our country, but it's becoming a vocal minority that feels it has an open field day unless we speak up. So I will conclude here and use the rest of the time, hopefully I left enough time, I think I did, for comments, questions, and I think Dr. Ron will read.
I just had a question.
Sure.
Where is CAIR's stance on suicide bombings?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. What is your stance, bro?
I asked you.
Why did you ask me? Because I'm Muslim.
Yes, because you are Muslim.
Because as a Muslim, I should.
Because let me tell you something. The reason people are leery of you people.
You
because,
people.
Yes, you people.
Yes.
You people. I use that phrase
Deliberately. I'm glad you're here.
Because where do you stand on suicide bombings?
What makes you think, before I answer
You're not going to answer me.
No, I'll answer you. I'll be more than
Then
glad to
answer me, and then tell. Then
Sir,
go on with your
please.
thing.
No,
Look,
I'll
I'm talking to
answer.
him. Get out of here.
Please answer.
Please.
You can leave, sir.
Answer my
I'll
question.
answer.
I asked you
Don't
one
interrupt
question,
him.
you won't even answer me.
Don't interrupt,
What
sir.
are you doing?
I'm
I'm
talking
a
to him. I'm
professor
not
here.
talking to you. I don't care who
don't
you are.
belong here if you can't
I don't
shut
care
up.
who you are. You shut up.
Wow, this is kind of hostile.
Answer.
As a Muslim, I cannot enter paradise if I didn't believe in the sanctity of life.
So that's a yes or a no?
Do you understand English? Shall I translate? Or not?
Wow,
I think you're beating around the
it's
bush.
kind of offensive.
Really?
Yes,
you,
really.
you think there's
Isn't
another
it
human
true?
being?
Isn't it true that in the Quran you are encouraged to lie to the infidel?
No.
That's a lie.
So if I say no, I'm lying.
You know that's true.
No, it's not
CAIR's
true.
stance on suicide bombings is yes.
No, it is not. It
Okay.
is in your mind, my friend.
No, it is not. It's in your
Actually, I don't
Quran.
want to say your friend, my friend, because I don't have friends like that. No, it is not. What I
Wow.
would advise you to do, my friend.
I don't need your advice.
My goodness.
Thank you.
I don't need your advice.
Other people have questions.
Yes. Thank you.
So, I was wondering how if CAIR has been in collaboration with other immigrants,
Sure.
And also, like, how have you been informed by their experience, even though it's so politically and historically particular? But I'm interested in kind of the relationship with other immigrants in Europe right now.
Sure. I mean, I just came back, as I said, from Poland, which was attending a human rights conference hosted by the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, of which the US is actually a member. So the US government is represented, and all the European governments are represented, but also NGOs. Some of the most active ones are actually the ones from Europe, including from France. One of the people who facilitated my travel was actually the head of a group called Justice et Liberté pour tous, which is Justice and Liberty for All. I had to translate because the acronyms. And they're very active. Unfortunately, they're way behind in terms of ability to make a difference, because France has a very unique interpretation of secularism. Its understanding of being secular as a state, because of the history of what the Catholic Church did in Europe and France, is almost anti-religion. It is not the way we have it in the US, where it's a separation of church and state, which is actually mostly to protect the church, the religion, from the abuse of politicians, but also vice versa. In Europe, there's fear of religion, and there's a growing xenophobia there that actually is mistreating, it's leading to the mistreatment of people who are perceived as foreigners, and in this case, Muslims are among them, although there are millions of Muslims who are French. But it's, when you talk to French Muslims there, they tell you we feel alien in our own country, unlike in the US. I can tell you, with all the things that I said, the spiking number of hate incidents going on, just in the first month after the election, 1,000 hate incidents were reported by the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Most of them were hoaxes.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Most of them were hoaxes.
No, they were not.
They came out as
Yeah.
hoaxes.
Nobody,
They
believe
absolutely
me.
did.
I heard about that too. They weren't
Hey,
true.
there was one.
But what I have heard is that Jewish people are the most targeted for hate crimes, not Muslims.
With the list.
Yeah,
I have a Jewish friend who was afraid to come here today.
Actually, what I would suggest for all people.
It's true.
visit
Is that camera
the
rolling?
Poverty Law Center website.
I have Jewish friends who didn't want to come today because they were afraid for their
Nobody
safety.
will burn their house or beat up themselves.
Stated that
So
they're-
anyway,
they're-
unlike what's happening here, with all the cases I'm saying that exist of hate incidents, attacks, the reality is most American Muslims feel very comfortable in their country.
Well, good.
American Muslims are mayors, American Muslims are judges, American Muslims are members of Congress, American Muslims basketball players, American Muslims, despite the little loud, angry, bigoted voices that exist, including in some places, American Muslims are surrounded by people who are actually welcoming. When American Muslims were targeted by this administration,
That's
by
not
the Trump
true.
Administration, right after
Yeah.
taking office, fulfilling a promise to ban Muslims.
That's not true. That is a lie. That is a lie.
So
That is slander, sir.
What we saw in America.
That's a lie.
Tens of thousands.
7 countries.
Of non-Muslims coming and marching.
That's not true.
You know what? If you want to ask a question,
I
ask
do.
a question.
I do.
It makes you look bad. I honestly think.
Je voudrais poser une question. Because you speak French.
It's not like you want to answer questions. You're deflecting from the first
Je voudrais poser une question.
I got the first. I got the second.
Okay, how about me?
disturbance.
How about me?
So we're gonna have.
I'm back here.
But we're over here.
I wanted to hear me, so yes, I am.
We have a right to ask questions as
You
well.
have a right not to interrupt.
Absolutely.
We are
But you can't say things that are a lie. Because the president didn't ban Muslims. That's a lie.
Does not mean that you have the privilege of interrupting our speaker, okay, or harassing.
But he doesn't have a right to
You can
lie.
model thoughtful discussion.
I just did by
If
correcting
you
him.
don't- No, you don't, sir.
Yes, I do.
You interrupt.
If I'm lying, I get to call him out. And I am listening to you.
Sir, what we need to do is to start listening instead of reinforcing our prejudices.
What prejudices?
Which
You
seems
didn't tell the
to be
truth.
what you're saying. We are here to learn.
I didn't say prejudice.
Okay? We are here to learn. Okay?
I have a question.
Now, okay,
I want to
you
learn.
have a question, but
Okay.
then you need to let him answer.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is not what you have been doing, sir.
I didn't get to ask a question.
And if you don't like my answer, that's fine.
That's good.
But you can't call the speaker a liar. You can just say, I don't agree with you, and that's fine.
But you did lie. Okay, so my question is, well, first of all, I think it's worth correcting the record that this country didn't intern 120,000 Japanese. It was the Democratic Party.
Can you get to the question, please?
And
We have very limited time.
I have to back this up because I want to use facts because you gave her enough time to make a question. So, the push for diversity is important. I absolutely agree with you. But I'm concerned because now I want to talk about Islam. Quran 2, 191 through 193. Kill them wherever you find them until there's no disbelief. Surah 489. Do not take friends with those who are not of the faith. So I don't see how that is compliant with our culture. Excuse me. And one more, because I have Jewish friends who are terrified even more so. The number one hate crime is not against Muslims, it's against Jews. It is offensive to me that you diminish what's happening to our Jewish communities. They are under attack. In France, French Jews are fleeing in large numbers, making aliyah to Israel. And here's this, from Sihab Bukhari, excuse me, verse 52, 177. It will come when the stones will cry out, here is the Jew, kill him. That's in your holy writ in Islam. Will you speak to this?
You asked that question.
I'm angry because I'm being interrupted, ma'am. And you have no right to do that. I didn't get to finish my question. How dare you talk to me like that? You're not in charge here, ma'am, so zip it. Go ahead.
Let me preface my thought. I forgot to mention that I actually went to Christian schools. And I know probably the Bible more than you do.
Well, how do you know that? That's bigoted, sir. How do you know?
It's a very bigot. Anyway.
You are a bigot. Okay, you admitted it. Okay.
Great.
All right.
Anyway.
Did you get that on camera?
If you read
He's a bigot.
any quote in the Bible or the Quran without the context.
I gave you context, sir.
Let me finish.
And there's Medina versus Mecca and abrogation. And Mecca abrogates Medina.
Without context, we end up with ISIS and KKK
Lie.
and others.
The KKK is not representative of Christianity. That is a lie. How dare you talk to me like that?
The Quran clearly says killing one innocent person is like killing all of mankind.
That's quoted from the Torah. They don't believe that. I've read the passage.
Is like saving mankind.
That's from the Torah, and it was quoted by the Quran. That's the context.
You asked your question.
I did.
Listen.
We're having a dialogue.
God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you can listen doubly.
And I can use both sides if I need to. I know Muslims do.
Use your ears so you can learn something. Maybe you can leave with something that will hopefully humanize your heart a little bit.
My heart isn't human? Excuse me? Why are you saying that?
Because
you said my heart is not human?
No.
Because I care about Jewish communities that are under attack by radical Muslims? French Jews are under attack every day, and you don't care? What about the Iraqi Christians who are being slaughtered in Iraq, in Afghanistan? The last Jew in Afghanistan had to flee for his life because of the radical Islamic hordes in that country.
As someone who professionally researches Islamism and has done many years of field research on this and teaches...
I'm sorry, that just was offensive. I apologize.
I would like to just point people to some resources on some of these points, because these are not points that exist outside of the faculty realm. Pew Forum 2011, there is a study that a survey of American Muslims and Muslims globally and Americans of all backgrounds and their support for suicide bombing. You may be surprised, I was, to find that American Muslims by and large actually have a far lower level of support for suicide bombing than Americans of any other group, partly because many of them have lived with its consequences.
But are you saying that some of them still support it?
I want to, modeling the norms of academic debate and behavior, I would like to weigh in factually. I believe these are questions that can be debated and discussed so long as we don't descend into a shouting match that is removed from facts. I do not have any positive views broadly of Islamists. I studied them fairly closely, and I have very few illusions about some of their positions. Islamists, however, are not the same as Muslims of all kinds, and I think it's significant to make that distinction. I also think it's important in the college space for us to also perhaps give the floor to students who have questions, who are here to learn, and for all of us to take turns. So I'll step down now.
Okay. Were you still saying that some American Muslims support suicide bombings? She didn't answer it. We're all students, aren't we?
So you talked a little bit about how you have really strong solidarity
Sure. I mean, we don't see our struggle for equality and justice in America as something unique to American Muslims. It's a very common, once there's justice for one, hopefully there will be justice for all. Once there's injustice for one group, it will trigger down to everybody else. So, for example, we work very closely with, there's a program called, that we established maybe 7 or 8 years ago, called Bridging Communities. Bridging Communities aims to bringing in members, especially high school students, from various communities, American Muslim community and another community. For many years, we worked with the Japanese American community in specific, where we'll bring these young people together, spending a couple of months every Sunday, learning about each other's experiences, and eventually going to Manzanar, going to a mosque, going to temples, going to the Japanese American Museum, in ways that establishes this bonding and this solidarity. Now, this is a program. Outside of, that program now is focused on the Latino community, just starting last year. So we'll have Muslim youth and Latino youth, including Muslim Latino, like my kids, coming together and learning about each other's struggles and creating room and platforms of solidarity. Just about 8 months ago, we formed the first group of its kind called Muslim Latino Collaborative in Orange County, which with the goal of reaching out statewide. And the main goal is to bringing in our issues together. So working on policy issues together, whether it's issues dealing with immigration, because it impacts both communities. Now, one of the biggest issues we're working together on is, since the signing of the Muslim ban executive orders.
No, that's a lie. It was not a Muslim ban.
Interrupted.
That's a lie.
All the promises of being a wall.
That's outrageous.
We're building something.
It was a travel ban. It was not a Muslim ban.
You were
You're entitled.
Okay.
I'm entitled to speak the truth. That is a lie. That is disgusting.
On DACA,
Words
for example.
matter.
So since the decision to
That's offensive.
end DACA by the president, DACA being a program that actually benefited
Unconstitutional.
a lot of the youth, but also, I know for the most part it has impacted people of Latin American background, but actually people of all backgrounds. So we decided to make that a main issue for the American Muslims.
Illegal is illegal.
So we closely work with Latino groups and immigrant rights groups on the issue of DACA and providing services, as well as working on policies within the state of California. We've lobbied with various
This is a long answer.
Latino groups, immigrant rights groups, on something called SB 54, a recent bill that was just signed by the governor, making the state of California a sanctuary state where people feel safe in colleges, in schools, and hospitals. We're working on another bill called SB 31, the California Religious Freedom Act, which will prevent any government agency in California from registering people on the basis of religion, because also the president during his campaigning was open to the idea of registering American Muslims.
Lie.
Okay. Could we only have time actually for one more question, and I'd like a student.
He spoke the entire time. I thought you said it was supposed to be about listening.
It's actually 1 hour of Tuesday night.
And you didn't answer my question about these verses in the Quran. I didn't attack Muslims. I talked about Islam.
in San Diego knows that's not true. They disprove
I wanted to talk about the role. I think Yanni spoke about how you were involved in multiple different coalitions, one of them being an Abrahamic faith coalition. I was wondering if you could talk about the role of interfaith.
Who wrote your question?
In combating Islamophobia, and if it stands unique and has a unique role as opposed to doing work in a secular setting.
I mean, anyone who has watched the history of racism in our country has also known that when it comes to a religious community being targeted,
How about Christians in Egypt?
the Jews in this country. And
Jews were targeted in this country?
When it comes to building solidarity and friendship, the most supportive religious community to American Muslims have been the Jewish and the Mormon community, not to discount the other support that has come from the other community. But you can understand from the history, being communities that were targeted themselves, I think they understood what it means. Plus, the same surveys that were quoted earlier on by people who have expressed anti-Semitic views, anti-Muslim views, have also expressed anti-Semitic
Excuse me, ma'am.
views.
Can I see it?
We heard what happened in Charlottesville, when the rally of the white supremacists were, they were talking about, actually they didn't shout at Muslims, they were shouting at the Jews. So when we understand that racists do not discriminate in a funny way, they're equal opportunity bigots. It is important that we build this solidarity. We will not be able to defeat racism in our country by doing it separately. If the Jewish community fights alone, it will not succeed. If
That's a lie.
the Latinos fighting alone, they will not succeed. The immigrants alone, the
They
African
succeeded
Americans
in
alone.
Poland.
We need to build these coalitions, and it's happening as we speak. So, when you look at some of the events, by the way, I have some material that I brought with me, including an announcement about an important rally on October 15 against the Muslim ban, which is
Wasn't a Muslim ban. That's a lie.
By various groups.
That's a lie. Stop lying.
What I suggest is...
It was a travel restriction. There were travel restrictions against Venezuela too that were just released.
Be quiet. Will you please be
Was
quiet?
that the travel ban when Obama was enforcing it?
Please do not interrupt.
And let's not forget, Muslims cooperated with the Nazis.
Understand English.
The Nazis collaborated with Muslims to kill Jews.
All right, we have to.
This is outrageous. You're a bigot.
You're acting like a toddler.
You are a toddler.
Please,
How could you do this?
let's try.
Islamic radicals collaborated with Nazis to kill Jews in southeastern Europe. Yes, it is. The Grand Mufti of Jerusalem and Hitler collaborated.
Let's try to close up.
Tell us about the Muslim Mafia. What is this, ma'am? You didn't get to ask a question?
Hussam Ayloush.
Boo! You didn't answer our questions! Boo! This is outrageous. You didn't listen to us. You came here pushing a propaganda.
I want to thank the attendees.
American Jews were targeted in other countries. How could you do this?
You said
There's no dialogue when you lie. It was not a Muslim ban. It was not a Muslim ban. It was a travel ban. You're a bigot and a liar. How dare you say something like that? French and German Jews are under attack every day because of the radical Muslim hordes going into that country. And there are Muslims becoming Christians every single day. You guys are lying. This is outrageous. The Grand Mufti of Jerusalem collaborated with Adolf Hitler to push the final solution. This is outrageous. You lie to this community when you say that it was a Muslim ban. The ban has been expanded to include Venezuela and to include other countries in Asia. He just admitted it, though. You're a bigot. This is outrageous. How dare you?
This man's heart was not as pure as yours. You said you knew more than him. You're a liar. You're a fraud. Mohammed.
How dare you come in here pushing that Islamic propaganda? I have never been so This guy's an active with the Democratic Party. This is outrageous. You are a bigot, sir. Jewish people were attacked, and they continue to be attacked by Muslims in Europe and around the world. Where are the Christian communities in the Middle East? Why don't you want to bother asking about that? What is it, Jewish lives don't matter? Or Christian lives don't matter? Aren't you? Well, you don't want to talk. How about that? Isn't that interesting?
What about the hate on white people, sir?
Why is there bigotry against Jews and Christians? Why are you trying to block me, but you don't go to anybody else? Excuse me. He doesn't. I don't feel safe. I'm hearing about Islam being promoted when it's killing thousands of people around the world.
What about the thousands of Christians?
Every major terrorist attack has been a Muslim because of the religion. And he didn't answer my questions about those verses. He refused to answer them. What's the consequence for apostasy in a Muslim country? What is the consequence for apostasy in a Muslim country?
Stop.
What is it? No, I will not. Don't touch me. Do not touch me. This guy's touching me. That guy touched me right there. I'm not allowed to talk to him? Why? We have a right to be here. This is an open, it was open to the public. Ma'am, this is outrageous. Jewish communities are under attack every day because of radical Islamic groups. And you are hand in hand with the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood gets much of their money. You're a liar and a bigot. How dare you?
bullied. It's statistically.
You were the first one mentioning it. That when he kept saying it was a Muslim ban, it wasn't.
And it's a travel ban. I don't know how many Muslims are in Venezuela.
I don't know either.
Just added to the.
I know, and I don't hear about that. You know what happened in Venezuela, though? Every Jewish resident left the country because of anti-Semitism. What about the Jews in Venezuela who were pushed out? Are you going to arrest that guy? He pushed me.
You are racist, sir.
How dare you?
You made 4 bigoted statements today, sir.
What about all the Christians being killed all over the Middle East?
That's right. What about the Muslims who become Christians in Europe? They have to go into hiding.
Japan doesn't want Muslims in their country.
They hardly have any, don't they? Because they don't allow for radical elements to come to the country.
And China is getting rid of.
How could you possibly come? I thought you wanted to listen. You don't seem interested in listening. You're the one who called us dummies and bigots. That doesn't mean you don't want to listen. And we've got another person here who's blocking my First Amendment right to petition the government. You're getting government money.
You when Obama had that travel ban.
Yes. Acting like a toddler because I defend Jewish communities and Christian communities who've been under attack.
Don't try to bring the Latinos into it, man.
That's offensive.
You're silly.
Native Americans came from Asia. As a Latino, I don't see that much racism, and I'm a business owner. So he's kind of lying.
This guy's a bigot. He is an operative for the Democratic Party.
What about other Christians?
And how is it commensurate to have the Quran with a party that believes in destroying marriage and having transgenderism? How is that commensurate with Islam? You didn't answer my question, sir. You didn't answer my question about those verses. You didn't answer them. This is outrageous. You didn't answer my question about those verses. They teach to kill people who do not accept Torah, who do not accept Allah. Those are in the Quran, and you didn't answer those questions. Now, why is that? This is outrageous. I have read the Quran, I've read the context of it as well. That guy says he knows the Bible better than I do, but he doesn't prove it. And the passage, ma'am, I have read it. Why are you running away now? You want to talk? You think it's funny that Jews are killed in larger numbers than Muslims and that the data is skewed? You think that's funny?
I suggest you read the data.
Okay, so what is...
I suggest you read the data.
I have read the data, ma'am. And why is it that you are claiming... Have you not seen it too? No, I'm allowed to question anybody. It's about open dialogue. I can say whatever. What's the difference between Islam and Islamism? What are you talking about?
That's a good question. That's an excellent question. Islamism is an ideology. Islamism is an ideology that is propounded by some movements who believe that religion should be the basis of political rule.
That's the Quran. It's all over it.
Not quite.
Wrong.
Okay, so
I'm aware of abrogation. There's the Medina, and then there's Mecca. Okay. I'm aware of that difference, for example.
I only have a PhD
and that's how Muslims. Well, that doesn't matter. Having a PhD in this country amounts to a piece of paper.
See all the crap that's happened in Europe?
Do you not acknowledge? You think it's funny that Jews? I want you to look at this. She thinks it's funny that Jews are slaughtered and killed in the name of religion. What do you mean, you people?
Oh,
you people? You people?
Go ahead, spit it
out. Whoa! You people.
Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth.
She's saying you people. Like we're some kind of subclass?
No, you are. Does it not bother you that he refused to answer the first question, which is, do you disavow suicide bombing?
He didn't say it.
Does it not bother you that he refused to answer that?
He didn't answer it.
How does he not answer that? That is the core. That is the core of the problem. The core of the
Whoa, more bigotry.
Okay, I think
the core of the problem is that we can't.
No, I'm not, because I'm open-minded. I'm calling out the lies. No, get out.
You're open-minded enough to shut me down.
You know why? Because you're lying to us and you call it good.
No,
and that's upsetting. And the dishonor of...
Because, this event is always
I'm sorry, folks, but when I hear lies like he says Muslim ban and it wasn't, or when he talks about a Muslim registry and there wasn't, it's offensive, and I'm allowed to be upset about that. You can't have a dialogue when somebody's lying at every step of the argument. All right, folks, I'll talk to you later.